it's Andy here, and today I'm going to be answering some of your questions about what it's like to live as a monk in a monastery. So this next question is from Magnus, who says, what was your daily routine when you lived in the monastery, and what's it like now? Goodness, that's a big question, Magnus. So every monastery was different, and like I said, I probably lived in 4 or 5 over the course of 10 years. Some monasteries were very retreat focused, and when you're in retreat, you're meditating. In the Tibetan monasteries, you tend to do sort of 3 or 4 hour sessions per day. So it's kind of maybe, 16 hours or something like that. In the Burmese monasteries in retreat, you're doing 9 hours of walking meditation, 9 hours of sitting meditation, and then there's some kind of time for eating, a little bit of time for sleep as well. And then there are other monasteries where actually it was a lot less retreat focused. My own interest was meditation, so I tended to choose monasteries and environments where I could do more intensive meditation. But there were definitely some where we were doing maybe, 6 or 8 hours of meditation a day, and then we'd spent a lot of time kind of cooking and cleaning and gardening and doing other things. So every monastery is different, and the activities and lifestyle of each monk and each nun is different as well. Some people are there to study sort of academically. It's almost like a university degree, but in the monastery. Others are there to study, say, art, for example, sort of Tibetan art. And some are there to meditate. And so everyone has their own approach. As for what my life is like now, it's not quite as simple and straightforward. It's the short answer. My friends joke that once a monk, always a monk. I still get up ridiculously early. I like getting up early. I'm excited. Mostly, there are the odd days, they're an exception, but mostly I like getting up early. There's something about the creative energy of that time of day that I like. But I have young children now, so my attention and my time is very much on what I do at home with the family, what I do for Headspace. Pre-pandemic, I was traveling an awful lot, a little less these days, but my guess is he'll probably go back to that at some stage. But the one thing that hasn't changed is making sure that I have time for meditation each day, making sure that even if the nights are not always long, making sure that they're restful and that my mind is in a good spot before I go to sleep. Making sure, so not so relevant in the monastery, but very relevant outside the monastery, making sure I have time to exercise. I feel better. I feel different when I exercise. Eating right, as best as I can. And again, that's something different for everyone. In the monastery, it was not eating that often. Outside of the monastery, it's just trying to kind of eat in a way that I know makes me sort of feel better. And every single day I try and do something that I really enjoy, something that makes me smile, something that makes me laugh, just to reconnect with that feeling of joy. So those 5 things, I'd say, continue to be central to my life even now. So this next question is from Tej, who says, since you started this practice, what's the longest you've gone without meditating? So not very long is the truth. But there's a reason for that. And because I don't want to suggest that I'm some kind of super disciplined person who would never miss a day. I would, and I have. But I did make some commitments. When you're in the monastery, especially if you're planning for long-term retreat, you make a number of commitments. And one of those commitments is to practice a certain number of exercises, techniques, every single day for the rest of your life, regardless of whether you're in the monastery or not. So having made that commitment, you're kind of all in at that point. And there is a commitment there to do that for the rest of your life. Admittedly, they give you much shorter forms of it, because it would be impossible to do multiple 3 or 4 hour exercises alongside kind of work and family life. But those short form exercises comprise a whole practice, which you do on a daily basis. I left the monastery 15 years ago, something like that. To the best of my knowledge, I've missed a couple of days along the way. And I think They were both during the early days of having children and sleepless nights and everything else. But my main kind of point here is that it's okay. One, it's good to make a commitment, because if we're committed and our intention is clear, that's really helpful. But also, sometimes we'll miss a day. Sometimes we'll fall off the wagon. That's okay. Nothing happens. The world doesn't change. The important thing is to realize when we have, to get back on the wagon again, and just to continue with your practice. So hopefully that's helpful. So this next question is from Scott, who says, did becoming a monk help deepen your knowledge and understanding of meditation as a whole, even though you were practicing meditation beforehand? And what are some ways that other people can achieve similar results? So, yes, in the sense that it created an environment which was very conducive to meditation. So I was looking for a very particular environment, perhaps a quieter environment, maybe a slightly more mystical environment, because I thought that somehow the answers I was looking for existed outside of myself, and I was going to find them in that kind of place. And there's no question, by going to some of those places, it gave me access to teachers that I would never have otherwise had access to. It gave me the opportunity to not be engaged in everyday work, in relationships, all kinds of things that in everyday life we simply wouldn't be able to put aside, right? 16 hours a day to meditate if we were trying to sort of keep up with a job and relationship and family and everything else. So I got away at an early age, and I was very fortunate to sort of have that time. So in that sense, absolutely, there's no question that it allowed me to deepen my practice and to establish greater stability of awareness. So funnily enough, these days when I look back at that, I realize that there's no need to go there to deepen your stability of awareness. It's quite possible to do it in everyday life. It's maybe more difficult, and there are obviously a lot more distractions, a lot more responsibilities. At the same time, it is possible. And when I think of stability of awareness, I think about how many moments in the day are we present, free from distraction. I'm going to take it a step further than that and say not only are we present, but we're present with an open mind, a curious mind, and a kind mind. So that kind of training is a journey of a lifetime, no matter where we live. And I think to begin with, we don't have many moments in the day. And meditation is one big moment, but it's equally important where we find those other moments. So I always encourage people, to think about this not just as meditation, but to think about this as mindfulness. And the opportunity, the potential for mindfulness exists 24/7. So if we can sort of approach it in that way, then all of a sudden, every single moment is an opportunity to train the mind, to become aware, to be more present. So in doing that, we start to see that, there are little moments throughout the day, and we start to get a sense of stability. It's not just the meditation and then the rest of the day is a roller coaster. There's a sense of the meditation and life kind of merging. So in the monastery, it's called meditation and post-meditation. They're both legitimate forms of training. In the monastery, there's a lot of meditation and less post-meditation. In everyday life outside of the monastery, there's not very much meditation, there's a lot of post-meditation. So it's even more important that we find a way, that we find time to, create those moments where we're reminded of what it means to be present. Not distracted, with an open, curious, kind mind. Thanks so much for watching today. If you have any questions of your own, please feel free to send them in to askandy@headspace.com, and I'll do my best to get to them in a future episode. But for now, take care, and I'll see you again soon.